the best part for me about how we met. So she was giving her friends a tour and she had this stack of papers in her hand. And it was several stories that had been published over time about the history of Green Swamp. So after trying to listen in and finally said, can I join you? When we were leaving, I said, I would love to get a copy of those papers. And she says, oh, yes. And she handed me. And we got in our cars and drove away. And I was like, wait a minute, this is thick, thick paper. Like, this is paper from the 70s and 80s. And some of the typing on it, like, this is typewriter. And it's got pencil scribblings on it of notes. Like, this is her originals. She had also given me her card. So I texted her. I said, I think you actually gave me your originals and you probably want them back. And she says, yes, those are, and yes, I want them back. And then I grew up outside of Augusta in rural Georgia. What this county was like 20 years ago, but won't be in town again soon. But she said the most Southern thing, which was fantastic. She said, I'm going out of town this weekend, but could you leave those papers at Cheryl's hair salon by the Hills grocery store? And I'll get them. So I left it there with some other goodies for her. And then we just sort of kept in touch. Yeah. So tonight I'm going to talk about Green Swamp and show you pictures of what's blooming there, and then also some of the critters you might run into. Have you guys have all been to Green Swamp? A few? You know where it is, off 211 towards Whiteville? Okay. Well, I'm going to go through, after we talk about some critters, we're going to go through by month of what's blooming. So there is a handout that lists everything that's blooming by month. And that handout was made from this book. Yeah. Give it on your thing. It's a field guide to Green Swamp. And it was done by a PhD botanist from Clemson. And he's a photographer and a botanist. So there's these fantastic pictures. And then there's all kinds of descriptions about what's happening with the plant that I skip over. So I take my pictures and I come home and I pore over this book trying to figure out what I actually saw. And then I label them. So you guys are welcome to look at this. He also has a book specifically on orchids. So this one I bought used, so the actual cover with the photos is gone. But most of these were taken in South Carolina at Francis Marion, and then I think at Lake Jocassee over near Clemson. But just beautiful, beautiful photos. So you're welcome. Pass those around or look at them when we're done. So I think Gwen covered most of this. I am not an artsy person or a photographer by training. I'm an analytics geek, so I have math and computer science undergrad and a master's in statistics from NC State, which was the best one because that's the one that got me the most money in the job when I graduated. In 2018, my beloved boxer dog wasn't doing very well, and I knew I was going to need a new hobby, and I wanted something that would get me outside. And I thought, well, I could buy a camera now that you don't have to buy film and develop it and all that. So I bought a camera. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And then, so I would, go on the beach and take some pictures and take a picture of the bridge and under the pier and all that stuff. And then I went, when you come over the bridge at Ocean Isle, there's a turnout right there at McClure Realty where you can sit and look over the coastal. And you can see the chapel that has a gazebo behind it. So those are some great places to see birds. So I was in the chapel And over there under Jinks Creek, that heron came and landed. And I actually got a picture of it that was almost clear. And I got hooked on bird and flight photography. I was like, okay, now I know when I want to take birds in flight pictures. And then over time, I thought, well, we have, all this other, we have Airlie Gardens and Brook Green Gardens. Like I should start taking pictures of plants. So I started on that, and honestly, my first attempts, it was horrible. Because you think, well, the plant's just sitting right there, but it's actually moving and then I was like, wait a minute, if you can get a bird flying in the air, surely you can take a picture of a plant in the wind. And once I put that together, I was good to go. So wildlife is the main thing I like to take pictures of, which is around here mostly birds, because the other wildlife we have, the foxes that could have rabies, like I like to see them run by, but I don't really want to be up close and personal to take a picture. The deer, if we have them, I'll take them. If I see them, but I'm usually out walking my dog right now about 5 in the morning because she doesn't like other dogs. And you just don't take a camera with you at 5 in the morning to take a picture of deer in the dark. And then if we have coyotes and whatever, I'm like, no, I don't want to see that by myself. So pretty much birds, sunrise and sunset, but it has to be a spectacular one. Like there has to be lots of color, or I'm not walking across the street to the beach to take the picture. Just stay inside. The plants are pollinators. So I got to the point where my dog, I would board him off old Highway 17 going into Bolivia. It was Canine Academy and it's something else now. So I got to the point I would take him for daycare for a half a day or a day, and I would go to the county gardens, the extension service gardens, and take pictures there of plants and pollinators. And then I would go to Green Swamp, and then wherever else I felt like, and then go back and get him in a half day, or go to Wilmington to their extension service garden, their gardens, all of that. I don't landscapes, unless it's really sunrise, sunset, I just get bored with it. Like it's just sitting there. I like with wildlife, what I like is it's like having with the big lens, it's under a microscope and you're seeing what happens. So for example, in Sea Trail, where the osprey platforms are and that creek, well, that little pond that's underneath that has more stuff growing in it now. A couple years ago, it was like a Anhinga hotel. They had like 5 different nests. And the babies hatch like several days apart, so they're different sizes. So the father flew in, and the biggest one was like, feed me, feed me, feed me, trying to get to the beak. And the father finally opened its mouth, and the one stuck its head in, and I'm looking through my lens, right? And it pulled an entire fish out that had not been digested at all. And you're like, did I just see what I think I saw? And then you go home and you put it on your big screen and you're like, this is fantastic. So it's that's the part that really excites me. Either getting a nice background on the bird in flight, not a seawall, but seeing all the feathers, and if there's light, you can see their skeleton and everything, that, or their behaviors, where you're seeing something that you wouldn't see with a naked eye, or even maybe a not so great pair of binoculars, because you don't really believe what you just saw, because it's so amazing. I don't photograph people either, because I don't want to be on someone else's schedule. And I don't want to, my neighbor had asked me to photograph her family for their 50th wedding anniversary, and that the teenagers would be ready by noon. And I was like, but like 7 a.m. is the best light. She goes, yeah, but they won't be up. I was like, yeah, that's not. I don't want to do that part. I do donate my images back. So all the images you see here and all the ones on my website from Green Swamp, I've donated to the Nature Conservancy, and I actually also gave them the slide deck from the DAR meeting. I donate the Museum of Coastal Carolina. I donate postcards in that they buy the postcard paper that I ask them to buy, and then they just tell me what to print when they need more, and then I print it. I pay for the ink and my time and just give it to them so they get a profit of the paper. And there's probably some other science and causes out there you can donate money to, but I can't think of them. But in 2023, the Christmas before, I got the book for Green Swamp. You know, I had been several times. I was like, I don't even know what to look for. So I started looking online, like, how can I find out more about what's there? And I found Jim Fowler's book and ordered it. And once I got it, I said, well, now I have, how many of these things can I actually see and photograph? So in the book, it tells you what month each thing blooms, but I think they're listed alphabetically by Latin name, which not going to happen in my world. I can do Greek letters, but not Latin names. So I typed them all in a spreadsheet and organized it by month. So now I would know. So the top is orchids, and then carnivorous plants, and then everything else are wildflowers that would be in that area. And they're not going to be just in the proper green swamp, but you can see it in the ditches. I mean, green swamp used to be much bigger, right, for nature. So the ditches along 211, you'll see it. There's also, if you go past Green Swamp and cross over 2 bridges, on the left side, there's a dirt road that's state maintained called Egypt Road. And it has a green road sign sometimes. I think it probably gets stolen a lot. Yeah. But that road, you drive down it, and on the passenger side of your vehicle, it's the same as Green Swamp, but you're not getting out of your, like, you get out of your car and stop when you see something. And the tree line is maybe from here to the back wall. So it's, nothing is that far away. So that's another good place to go. So some of the pictures I'm going to show you were actually taken there. But it was, on my website, it will say Greater Green Swamp Area, and that means it was Egypt, right? Because I don't tell people about Egypt. Only people I know that might really be interested. But so there's this handout you should have, and then I put my website on the side here. So if you want to see more pictures from Green Swamp or other places I've been, and then I'll show you at the end, I have a resources page of all the nature places that are public that you could go in the county, a little beyond the county, and then Charleston, the mountains. I went to the Outer Banks, but it was mostly landscape. But I had never been, so I went last year. But all the places are there. So I did tally up, of course, being a math and stats person. So from the book, I've seen about 50% of what's in the book at Green Swamp. So when you go to Green Swamp, this was after a burn a couple years ago. Remember, they burned it. They burned the main side we would walk on. And then when they went to burn the other side, it caught the other side back on fire. So this was after, I think, the second burn. Pretty much everything that we're going to see pictures of, except that blue flower that was on the first page. Everything is across this bridge. So if you don't get to this bridge and go across, you're not going to be seeing what I'm showing. but the blue flower is before the bridge. I probably should have put this one in for the DAR. At this time of year, and especially across this bridge, the bridge is pretty wide and they cut the trees back. But these things like to build their web over the top. So let the tallest person go first, unless it's me. And if it's me, I usually have my hiking stick. The Nature Conservancy people said, just knock the web down and go on your merry way. But they're usually up high, so you could go under it, but it's dropping down. They'll be across the bridge and they'll be on the sides of the trail between the trees and stuff like that. Some people ask me about snakes. So Green Swamp is not the area where you would walk. It's not a wet swamp. It's a raised sandy island. If you went tomorrow, it would be mushy. You might sink in a few places about like that. But if you wait till the weekend or next week, that's going to dry up. So there's really not a lot of snakes. That I've only ever seen the one snake. And I was crossing the bridge and I heard this screaming noise, like a cat, cross between a cat and a small child. Going, ah. And I looked down and the snake was trying to eat the frog. So I stood there, of course, and took pictures until the deed was done. And then I sent them to my botanist buddy and he said, well, that's a ribbon snake. And then I Googled what kind of frog screams, and I wrote it down somewhere, and I don't know where I put it, tell you what it is. But the frog actually, like there's YouTube videos of the frog screaming, just like that. So you're gonna have spiders, you're not really gonna have snakes.
Did the frog get away?
Oh no. No, he got. So he was originally pushing with his back legs, but the snake timed it. The frog pushed and he grabbed it, and then that was it. He kept pulling and pulling. Yeah. There are people that go out there for birding. That where that red arrow is, there's a red-headed woodpecker. But yeah, no, I'm not going to stand around. I would rather spend my time looking at the flowers I know are there than trying to find in all those pine trees the one redhead. A group of us went the Friday before Easter, and we did see on the right is a prothonotary warbler, which if you tell birders that you saw a prothonotary warbler, they will kind of lose their mind a little bit with excitement and want to know where. That picture was actually taken at Beadler Audubon Swamp Forest outside of Walterboro. So that wasn't taken. The one we saw was flitting around in leafy trees near the edge of the trail, not in the pine. And the botanist recognized its song and started humming it. But the other thing about birding, when you tell somebody, we'll see the third pine tree on the right. So I don't bother so much with the birding, but there's a lot of people. Oh, and there are, there's a special kind of woodpecker. No, the other one, the endangered one.
Yeah.
Red cockaded woodpecker. So there are those out there. I don't know that I've ever seen one or heard one. I can't identify the birds by the sound. And there will be butterflies. Usually this one on the left, the pallid swallowtail, is the one I see the most. And its torso has the yellow stripes. So most of the other butterflies with black wings, they have polka dots or other things happening on their torso. And this is the only one in our area with stripes. So that's how I always know that's that one. The middle one is a wood nymph. So it was like about this big. But I was out there one day, the same time frame when I met Gwen. I pulled up and there was another car in the parking lot, which used to be a weird thing. And there was a teenage kid with his father, and the teenager was, he probably could have a PhD in botany right now if he wanted to. So he's the one that was seeing. He's like, oh, look, what are you talking about? So again, I was like, can I tag along with you? So he was looking for some very specific pitcher plants. And I was like, well, I know where that is. I'll show you, and then you show me everything else you see that I'm not seeing. And then on the far right, the cloudless sulfur, which, I mean, you see those around your house all the time, but it's on an orange fringe orchid, which is native to green swamp. I'm pretty sure that picture, though, I took it on Egypt Road, because until last fall, the only orange fringe orchids I'd seen were actually on Egypt Road, and they're close. Last fall, we did see some out in green swamp. And then dragonflies. So I brought another book. Dragonflies and Damselflies of Georgia and the Southeast. And when you see the size of the book, you're like, wow, they must have written a lot about each one. But there's only like a page on each one because there's hundreds of dragonflies and damselflies in our area. So you can imagine, you get the picture, and I try to get a picture head on, like the top left, and then from the side, like the bottom, because you need to see the features of their wings and the color of their body and all of that. And then you just page through this looking for which one. But this book, it will actually say down here, similar species, and say if your markings aren't matching up, look at these other ones, and then you can flip over to that and compare back and forth. So this is also a fantastic book. So these, the two on the left are Amanda's pendant, which the little PhD teenager guy, he was so excited to see it, so I'm thinking it was rare. And then the middle one is a painted skimmer, so all those little spots on its wings are what make it painted. And then on the right side, that's a blue dasher. But when I took that picture, I was focused on the dragonfly. But when I got home and had it on my computer screen, there's a little bug down in the bottom that's sort of looking at it. And for me, like, the bug made the whole picture. So getting into the plants. So this sheet, the gray is showing you when something's in bloom. So there's going to be pitcher plants there all year, and there's going to be Venus flytraps there all year. But if you want to see them with their flower on it, these are the months you need to go. And then the wildflowers, obviously, they're only going to be there around the months that are on the sheet. On the left, there's some pitcher plants here, and their flower, the red one up there. And then these are actually Venus flytrap flowers. So the flytrap is down here, and the flower is up there. So these carnivorous plants, their flower is high above the carnivorous part, because if the pollinator gets stuck and eat, it can't actually pollinate. So it evolved to keep them separate. So pitcher plants, there's sundews here, and there actually is a little bloom on this one. different kind of, and then those are other types of pitcher plants and their flowers that are blooming. So in 2023, after the intended burn and then the unintended burn, when I went in May, when it's finally back open, all the stuff that blocks your view was gone and all the little ferns were back. And it was just so lush. I mean, you can still see the charring on the trees, but it was just so lush. Um, and then all that green, like I just walk around and look for something that's not green or brown, take pictures of it, and then go home and look in the book to figure out what it was. So in May, the top is a Venus flytrap with its flowers. And then the bottom left is, well, let's go around because my list on here is around. So rosebud orchid, grass pink orchid, the far right with the black background is a rose begonia orchid, and then grass pink orchid, the pink and the white, and then this tall one, I'm pretty sure it's Lady Tress's orchid. Oh yeah, they're lady tresses. So there are several different kinds of lady tresses, and their leaves are different, and the way the flowers on the stem are is different, and it's all detailed in the book. For me, it's lady tresses. I checked it off the list. And then again in May, there's the pitcher plants and then wildflowers. So in terms of wildflowers, the white one that looks like a star is called a white top sedge. And those are starting to bloom. They were starting to bloom in the April. Then there's wild violets out there, purple. The bigger white with the black background is colic root. And then a coreopsis, the yellow one, the orange one is an orange milkwort. And then the smaller purple one is violet butterwort. So it is a carnivorous plant. So at the end of April, we had never seen as many of those that were out there. You were kind of walking and there were a few, and then we like went around this little thing and there was this whole bunch of them. And a lot of the carnivorous and the orchids are going to be closer to the tree lines. So you'll be walking on this path through the pine forest, but in the distance, you can see a more dense tree line. And where it's dense, that's where there's more water. And so the carnivorous and orchids are going to be there. So you need to stay on the little trail to get there. But there's usually a good payoff, besides the mosquito. But there was this whole little field of these violet butterworts, and they were all different shades of purple. So I had only ever seen the ones like this and some that were a little paler, almost white. But there were some that were almost as dark as the iris. It was beautiful. So when I put this together, it made me realize I had never been in June. And then I realized, so in 2023, when I was sort of on my mission to photograph as much as I could, in April, I had won a spot in the South Carolina State Parks Artist in Residence program. So they give you a cabin in the state park for a week, and you do whatever your art is, and then you donate a piece back to them at the end. So while I went to Charleston, and at Magnolia Gardens, there were baby owls in the trees, and you could hear them, but you couldn't. So I was walking around, and instead of watching my feet, and so I got a little fracture here. Like, I could pick up my backpack, so I was like, I'm not going to pay a doctor. Because if it's just a hairline, they can't see it until it starts healing. So I'll buy some ice packs and put them on there. I'll get a brace and we just keep going. But then when I got back, the doctor took the x-rays. He's like, well, I think it is broken, but I can't tell yet because it hasn't healed. But you can't use that big lens. No, you stay home. So I missed my June. But then I added the slide for tonight. And I was like, oh my gosh, I need to go in June. Probably need to go 3 or 4 times in June to see all this other stuff. July, hot and sticky, lots of mosquitoes, ticks. Yeah. So when I go, no matter how hot it is, I always wear long khaki hiking pants. In the summer, if it's mushy, or in the summer, I wear my hiking boots. I will wear a short sleeve shirt, but like I said, I grew up in rural Georgia and I want to see the tick crawling on my clothes before I feel it crawling on me. And I take a lot of bug spray. So wildflowers, there is a lot of pink going on in July. So on the left, there's a swamp hibiscus, which that picture was actually on Egypt Road. But again, when I got home, then I saw this little guy, the little animal sitting there. And I wish I had, so I was like, you get home here, like, man, if I had paid more attention, I could have got him in focus too. But oh well. So swamp hibiscus, the top is a pine woods rose gentian. And it was on Egypt Road, and I saw it 2023, and I have not seen it again. It was like a cluster of. But it's the relative of the blue flower, which is another kind of gentian. Underneath it would be is blazing star, thistle, barber's buttons. I had never seen barber's buttons. I mean, Georgia, you came inside covered with red clay. You didn't have sandy soil for all this stuff to grow. So a lot of the stuff I've never seen. But the barber's buttons, in July, if you drive down Egypt Road, the whole thing will be lined with barber's buttons. It's fantastic. And then below the barber's buttons is a larger bush of the gentian. And then the little hat pins. If you've seen them, they're like this tall off the ground, and then just a little white fluffy ball on top. And it literally looks like you could pick it off, stick it in your hat as a pin. So those, I think those are from Egypt Road too, but when you pull into the parking lot at Green Swamp, there's this pond on the left, the borrow pit. So they used to dig sand out of there, and then it just, wet weather pond filled with water. That thing is full of hat pins. August and September, things are getting good. Sticky hot, but good. The fringed orchids start blooming. So there's orange and there's white. And last fall, we actually saw at Green Swamp the orange fringed orchid, but without the fringe. So without this little part, which it says in I call it the Green Swamp Bible. It says that is a variation with and without the fringe, but we've never seen that. The white version, that one I actually saw at Piney Ridge in Wilmington. So Piney Ridge, it's less than an acre, but it's a bog swamp kind of behind the mall and the middle school. And you walk on this little paved trail just a short way, and all of a sudden, all this stuff is just right there in less than an acre. So if you want to see a lot of this, but don't want to trek through, if you're in Wilmington, just stop there and walk around a little bit. And then wildflowers. So the pinky purple with the yellow coming out is Savannah Meadow Beauty. The yellow one with the 4 petals, and it actually has a spider on it. Remember at the DAR, I didn't know what that one was, but I asked my botanist friend, and we're pretty sure it's a swamp primrose. So it's something in the primrose family. And then the 3 petaled yellow one is yellow eye grass. The farther purple one is a different kind of meadow beauty, a short stem meadow beauty. Then below it, the little white stars, those are rush featherling. So the first one with the white petals that kind of look like a star, those are about this big flower. But the featherlings, they're like this big. So tiny, tiny. I think the bottom yellow one is a sea oxeye. And then the beautiful reddish orange one is a pine lily. So that one we saw at Green Swamp last fall. Well, summer. I've seen one growing along the side of 211, but when I went back the next day, they had mowed and so it was gone. And I've seen one, when I say one, I mean like one flower, but with the color and the shape, like that's what it is. On Egypt Road, I've seen one, but I've never seen one in the same place twice. But this one, it was so beautiful, and it's got a nice little grasshopper or spider or something, which is bonus for me. In the fall, when we start to get fog again, it gets really pretty out there. So the first picture is the borrow pit with the low fog sitting on it. And then when you get back in there and to see in the back on the right picture, there's pine trees and then there's more like a brown brush. So that is the thicker tree line where it's wetter. But all that starts to turn brown, and then some of the underbrush stuff starts to turn brown. But those blazing stars, the purple ones, are all there. So it's really beautiful. And the day that fog was there is the day all these pictures with the water droplets on the petals, that's from that fog. I mean, as a photographer, when it's foggy, she's like, yes, if I can see to drive. But again, some of it I didn't know. I mean, the flower might have been like from here to the parking lot, but I had my big lens, so I have to get off the trail to go get it. But you don't know there's water droplets until you get home and you're going, and it comes up on your screen. And then I call it a gasper, like it comes up and oh. So they are, the top row, a false foxglove, false asphodel, lobelia, swamp aster, and then down here, a swamp aster, coreopsis, a white aster, and a different kind of false foxglove. So this one up here is a purple false foxglove, and that one down there is a black sleeve false foxglove. Yes.
Ma'am, my estimation, in October, you won't see them in my woods. You might March or early April, but October, you won't see that in my woods.
These were all, so my camera puts the date that it was taken, and all my photographs are organized by those dates. So I was like, okay, give me October.
And he lives in a different location of the
Yeah.
county, so you're talking just.
In Green Swamp, just that area on 211.
Right.
In October, this is blooming.
It's a bigger bog area.
Yeah. But yeah, they could be blooming different times somewhere else. That's why the book is so precious to me, because I can look at my sheet and go, okay, is there more than one thing that should be blooming? And then go out and look for color, take the pictures, and then come home and look through the book and make sure. Sometimes I can upload pictures to sites to have it identified, but it's usually not right because Green Swamp is kind of specific. So I believe you. But in Green Swamp in October, those were there. And then my favorite, blue is my favorite color. So this blue one is the Pine Barren Gentian. So to see this one, it's usually like late October into November. And before you get to the bridge, you'll see on the pines, there'll be the trail markers before the bridge. So you're walking in pine forest and then you see trees with a break, and that's where the bridge is going to be. So before that, wherever the trail marker is, usually on the left side, you'll see they're low to the ground and they're about this big, but that blue color, you just can't miss it. There's sometimes some on the right, but definitely on the left. But once you cross the bridge, they're not there. And then the other one is rattlesnake root, which you look at it, you go, well, why would that be? But then when you look in the book, if you actually pulled it out, the root looks like the rattlesnake tail. Who knew? So that's sort of my, in December, it's kind of dry. In December, if you grew up walking in the pine woods and you miss walking in the woods because you're walking on the beach, Green Swamp's a nice place to go and walk in the woods. But there's not that much blooming to see. But so on my website, I have this resources page, and on the handout, my website is listed right there. So, as I said before the start of the meeting, there are some photographers that won't tell you where they took any picture. And, if I was going to somebody's house, somebody said, hey, come in my yard and take pictures whenever you want. Normally I go, well, I'm going to text you each time, because if the police show up, I want to say, see, I texted them. They say, yes. Like, you need to know if I'm in your yard. But these are all public places that were put here for us to enjoy nature. So I will tell people, this is where I took the picture. And all on my website, all my pictures are labeled by where they were taken. It doesn't say Egypt Road because there are people that live there. And I grew up like that, and I wouldn't want a whole bunch of people to all of a sudden start coming. So it'll say Greater Green Swamp area. But I'll go ahead and list them, and I put, so if the place has an actual website, I have a link to the website, and I have the Google Map link. For people, I have organized. The first section is in our county of places I've been, and then within an hour and a half, so Vereen Gardens, Piney Ridge, Airlie Gardens, the new Hanover County Arboretum, Huntington Beach State Park, which is fantastic for wildlife. And then it was getting too long, so I split out Charleston, South Carolina, upstate, the Outer Banks, and the mountains. I split them onto their own pages, but it's just like this. For the upstate, I think for the mountains, I actually have a picture of the map and the driving route, so you can see, like, you're not doing all this. Everything is in the order that you would drive. And the Outer Banks one, I took most of the sites from a professional photographer that lived in the Outer Banks, and he has a little booklet on how to photograph wildlife in the Outer Banks and what else to photograph. So when I went last year, I was like, well, I'm gonna do everything on his list that I can. But I'm going in April, so the wild horse tour won't be ready, but okay, fine. And then I also have like mobile apps and websites. So just like you could spend an hour trying to figure out which false leaf foxglove that was, you could spend that on a swallowtail butterfly. But there's a website that I found for local butterflies that says, okay, these are the differences between them. And this is the male and the female. And you can pretty quickly sort out which one you actually took a picture of. And then the field guides. So the ones I brought tonight are on there and a few others that I use. And then I brought, who has the fossil book? So the other book I brought, my other hobby that I started pretty much during COVID is trying to find shark's teeth on the beach. And once I realized I can't look for shells and teeth, just look for teeth. Then I started getting good at it, and I could be like, oh, there's one over there. But there's so many other fossils out there from all the different animals that lived here way before our time. Up to, I think the mammoth was 10,000 years ago, was the earliest they were here, all the way back to hundreds of millions of years ago. So this book, it's Beachcomber's Guide to Fossils in the Southeast. So it's sort of Outer Banks down to Charleston and maybe Georgia, that specific area. And it's fantastic. The pictures are good. The descriptions are good. The little books you can buy, like at the Museum of Coastal Carolina with the shark, you can't see the detail of the teeth. But this one you can. So you guys are welcome to look at that too if you want. So that's it. That's what I've got. Other questions? Comments? Yes.
Would you have two pieces of advice for, say, a typical amateur photographer with a typical Nikon D80 and a typical macro lens that's not this big? For taking pictures of flowers.
In Green Swamp, the reason I take my big lens is to try to stay on the paths as much as possible for two reasons. One, if you go off the path, there's sundews and fly traps underneath the grasses that you're not seeing, and you're killing them when you walk. So they tell you not to do that. But for most things, it's easier with the big lens. But the thing, besides realizing that taking a picture of a flower in the wind and the bird were the same, so it's the same because I needed a faster shutter speed. So you could either, do you shoot in manual mode or aperture or?
Mostly up to this point, I'm a sports action amateur photographer.
Oh, well, you got
That's
this.
what my kids do.
Yeah.
So
pretend like it's the fast kid.
Okay.
Right? And so set your camera for the fast kid in shady-ish light and take some pictures and go from there. The D80 is DSLR.
Yes.
It's not mirrorless.
You know what? Mine is 20 years old.
Okay, so
yeah.
Well, the reason I'm asking, so the mirrorless.
Yeah, this have a mirror. No.
Well, yours, if it's 20 years old, it has a mirror.
Yeah.
So with my mirrorless, when I look through and I adjust settings, it shows me what the picture's gonna look like. With yours, it's not, so you're gonna have to take some pictures and then look, and then, yeah, and adjust. But because it's moving, just start with, like, if I was gonna photograph birds, I would set my shutter speed to 1/2500. And I go to wherever I'm gonna be, and I meter it on something white and set everything else. If I'm doing the flowers, okay, is it sunny or shady? Maybe set it to 1/1000 or 1/500, depending how windy it is. And then set everything else based on the light. But if you think about it if you're doing people running around and moving, just think of it, it's like you think the flower is still, but it's not. And then if you go, have you been to the Extension Service Garden in Bolivia? So you know where the county seat in Bolivia is?
Yes, yeah.
So,
Whatever it is.
yeah, you pull in and you go around to the left, and then there's that. So there you can get really close to stuff and practice before going to Green Swamp, where you may not be able to get as close. So that helped too. But when you're closer, it's moving faster. Yeah.
I looked at your website. It's gorgeous.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Other questions?
These two men are from Green Swamp up Macatoki Road,
Okay.
up at the bridge. Did you not say that the Nature Conservancy has some land back in there now at the bridge
So
on Macatoki? Because that's right.
no, that's
That's getting,
the game lands, the juniper game lands.
Is it,
Yeah.
they don't have anything back in there?
Well, if you were in the Green Swamp parking lot, all right. So here's 211. I go in the Green Swamp parking lot, and instead of going into Green Swamp, I turn around and look back at 211, and then look back towards 17. You can see another road across with a gate. That is part of Green Swamp as well, and you are allowed to park there and walk down that side.
Green Swamp is a lot bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not. So the little PhD kid that I met, he posts everything he sees on iNaturalist, a website where people, I saw this on this date, and if you don't know what it is, they can help you identify it. So I went and looked at his for the time he was there, and him and his dad went down there, and that they saw the orange fringe orchid. So that's why I drove to find a real road with houses and stuff that was still in Green Swamp. And I found Egypt Road and found the orange fringe orchid at the same time of year that he had. But then I asked my botanist friend, had he ever been on that side? And he said, yeah, it's the only place I've ever seen a bear in the county. And I was like, all right, then. And it's gated, you can't drive, you're walking. And I was like, well, with the spider, you want someone taller than you, and the bear, you want someone slower than you, but I don't think I want the bear at all on foot. But you can go there too.